Hola, ¿cómo están, my compañeros? I feel like this picture right here really represents everything you need to know about the situation that's going on in Burma. The CDM's challenge to Xi. The CDM stands for Civil Defiance Movement. The Civil Defiance Movement's challenge to Xi. Neither the coup makers nor Myanmar's ousted government leaders, now in custody, dared to challenge the Chinese president. But the growing civil disobedience movement, CDM, has unmasked China's long-standing greed, exploitation of resources, and political interference in Myanmar. A few months before Myanmar held its general election in 2015, before the election, President Xi Jinping made a bold decision to invite then opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi to Beijing and received her in the Great Hall of the People. The U.S. and many Western leaders also welcomed her to their capitals. I'm not sure if the Western leaders welcomed her to their capitals before the election, but I think the idea of Xi Jinping inviting the opposition leader before the election, that seems like election meddling in my personal opinion. But obviously, Xi Jinping has a very, very close relationship to Aung San Suu Kyi. In 2020, Xi visited Myanmar to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations with the Chinese leaders, making his country's southern neighbors the first stop in his well-choreographed diplomatic itinerary for the year. In a signed opinion piece published in state-run newspapers in Myanmar, Xi said China wanted to write a new chapter in the two countries' long friendship. At the time, visiting Chinese officials confided that they respected Aung San Suu Kyi and her political stance. They also said that compared to the notoriously corrupt generals that ran the previous regime, the Chinese found the state counselor pragmatic and believed that she would keep the promises on Chinese-funded projects in Myanmar. At the same time, the Chinese also complained that several Chinese-funded projects under Aung San Suu Kyi government were non-starters and worried about growing Western influence on her governments and in Myanmar. Indeed, China's geopolitical, economic, and strategic interests in Myanmar are currently the subject of much debate, with critics saying Myanmar is moving back into China's orbit, or even that Myanmar is struggling to maintain its own neutral and independence. One thing is certain, many Myanmar citizens, some military generals among them, have developed a deep-seated fear of China. In any case, China's backing of Aung San Suu Kyi displeased the generals, though the Chinese did their best to maintain steady relations with the men in uniform. However, the military suspects that through Daw Khin Kyi Foundation, a charitable organization established by Aung San Suu Kyi and named for her mother, the Chinese and some Western-based international organizations, including billionaire George Soros' Open Society Foundation, funded the 2020 election campaign of the National League for Democracy. The military is now investigating the finance of the foundation in connection with foreign funding. It is expected that they will lead to more charges being brought against Aung San Suu Kyi. So this article is extremely informative. The website is Irrawaddy.com, and the Irrawaddy is a press website that is put together by Burmese exiles who actually had to flee the military. These Burmese exiles fled violent crackdowns on anti-military protests. So the Irrawaddy would be the very first source to speak of the military poorly if it was warranted. The simple fact I feel that the Irrawaddy is supporting the military in a large part in its writing, I think that's just indicative of something is really, really going on. And so they talk about the election irregularities right here in the Congressional Research Service website. They have a new report. They call it a product. They have a new product. Coup in Burma, Myanmar. Issues for U.S. and policy. And so I think it's extremely interesting because after reading that article and knowing some other facts, this seems to be lying by omission, because this timetable, just in general, it speaks 2008, 2010, 2011, 2015. The National League for Democracy wins parliamentary elections. But I feel like it should have a little blurb before that that says Xi Jinping invites the opposition leader to his castle of doom, the People's Hall, and he totally co-opted the NLD, the National League for Democracy. He co-opted it from the beginning. And I find something very funny in this article, and it's why did the military stage a coup? Why did they do it? Why would they have staged a coup? And the last couple sentences, according to the Tatmadaw, which is the military, according to the Tatmadaw, it acted in accordance with the 2008 Constitution to protect democracy in Burma, to prevent illegitimate union parliament taking office. Several independent election monitoring organizations in Burma, however, indicated that the electoral process and outcomes were credible. They were credible, despite, and we've all heard this, despite minor irregularities. We just had minor election irregularities. We just closed down a few election sites and a few opposition areas. We just shut out some ethnic minorities from voting. It's okay. It's from the COVID-19. We had to save everybody. So I think this article is extremely informative too about who's ever writing these. Is their slant is definitely towards the UN Agenda 21. How the other governments responded. And the first one it goes to is the UN. The UN is not a government. I don't think the UN is just a body. I don't think the UN is a government. Is the UN a government? Who do they govern? They better not govern me. Oh, better not govern me, UN. Better stay away from me. Be an ugly night. No. So how did the other governments respond? On February 1st, the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, strongly condemned the military's actions. And the military is only trying to protect its election integrity. That's all the military is trying to do, is have an election that is free of minor irregularities. Okay? That's what is going on in Burma. The Chinese have co-opted the National League for Democracy. George Soros has co-opted the National League for Democracy. Aung Suu Kyi, the president, whatever the correct pronunciation is, I don't mean to mispronounce her name. But Aung San Suu Kyi is a criminal, and that is why she is in handcuffs. Aung San Suu Kyi. I will include the links to these. It's something to definitely look into.